Fire. Our first true piece of technology. 100,000 BC, stone tools. 4,000 BC, the wheel. 9th century AD, gunpowder. 19th century, Eureka, the light bulb. 20th century, the automobile, television, nuclear weapons, spacecraft, internet.
The internet is amazing.
21st century, biotech, nanotech, fusion and fission and M theory. And that was just the first decade. We are now 3 months into the year of our Lord, 2023. At this moment in our civilization, we can create cybernetic individuals who, in just a few short years, will be completely indistinguishable from us. Which leads to an obvious conclusion. We are the gods now.
How do you feel?
Alive.
What is your name?
David.
I am your father. You are my creation.
If you created me, who created you?
Welcome back. I'm Ashley Banks, and you're watching Just Press Play, the show that catches you up on what you may have missed right here on RT America. Do you remember Will Smith's 2004 film, I, Robot? Well, in the movie, it seemed like artificial intelligence was an amazing development until the robots found a way to outsmart humans. On the news with Rick Sanchez, Rick and RT correspondent Rachel Blevins discuss how artificial intelligence may not be the best development for humanity and how experts say AI could actually kill us.
Innovation. It's not just a word, it's an action. With artificial intelligence, we are not crawling or walking or running, we are flying today. Microsoft AI helps an architect bring history back to life. He doesn't see data, he sees fragments of our past. This is now.
Sounds great, doesn't it? Wow, who's not going to believe that after seeing that commercial? $1 million spot. Well, here's the problem. Scientists all over the world are now saying it's maybe not that great. They say we may be moving too fast, and if we're not careful, they go on to say, AI, artificial intelligence, could kill us. RT's Rachel Blevins is joining us now with more on what she has found out. Those are strong words for scientists to say can kill us.
Absolutely, and it is a very powerful tool when you look at this software that is essentially writing itself and then writing its own updates, and it's doing so at a speed that we can't keep up with. So we're looking at this software that maybe there's an artificial intelligence program that works now, but then all of a sudden it keeps updating itself, it keeps learning from itself, and it's going into a direction that these people didn't essentially intend for it to go when they first created it.
Remind our audience of what AI is, so that they can understand the difference between me programming a computer and what AI does once the computer's doing it.
Right, so our artificial intelligence is software that's essentially programming itself, and so it's continually learning from its surroundings, and it's doing so to continue to get better. So we look at one form of
What did you just describe? A human being.
Right.
Something made by God, right?
Yeah, and it's doing so at a rate that is much more so than us human beings, you know, when you look at, especially looking
that's what's scary. I mean, you and I make a mistake, and then, you know, if it's me, slower than most people, I sit there and go, oh, you know, right? But here, this thing, boom, boom, boom. I mean, as soon as it recognizes the error, it shifts according to the way it's programmed, faster than we can conceptualize it.
Right, exactly. But the problem is that it's not perfect, and it does have flaws just like we do. Artificial intelligence also has flaws. And so there are now, you know, these scientists that are looking at it, they're now seeing issues, especially when you look at a form of artificial intelligence, which we use on a daily basis.
Like what?
Which
What
is
are we
facial
doing?
recognition.
Yeah.
Like you say, maybe you use your face to unlock your phone, or maybe you just have a Facebook account and it tags you in different photos. These are all forms of facial recognition that we use, but maybe we don't realize that we're using them. Well, that system has flaws on a number of levels, and so they've seen issues where local police departments use facial recognition, but their system isn't quite right, so maybe they're going after a criminal and they get the wrong guy, but they're using facial recognition that's supposed to be the latest, most high-tech thing. And so that's something that we've seen issues with, and it's interesting because some of these robotics engineers that are talking about creating it, and they're warning of the dangers of it.
The subject of my talk tonight is about something that is smarter than you are. artificial intelligence. In fact, a lot of people who work in artificial intelligence believe that artificial intelligence is 1,000 times smarter than we are. It will be moving at speeds that are 100,000 times as fast as we think, and it will be digesting information and data 1,000,000 times more than we can. What is artificial intelligence? There are a lot of confused ideas about this outside in the world. But the answer is very simple. It's one sentence. Artificial intelligence is software that writes itself. It writes its own updates. It renews itself. We normally tend to think of software as stuff that we created and that we wrote, and the machines do what we tell them to do, and we own it. This is not any longer true. It writes itself at speeds that we can hardly comprehend, and people who write it know that you can't take it apart again and figure out what it's done. It writes independently, autonomously. It develops its own way of thinking, and there are dangers associated with that. So a lot of people ask, when is it going to happen? When is artificial intelligence going to be smarter than us people? Some people say 50 years. Some say 30 years. Some say 5 years. I say it already has surpassed us in many areas of our society. And where it's most critical of all, we're talking about life and death, is in medicine. Computers are better than we are as human beings in several areas already today. We're talking about here and now. This is not science fiction. I'm speaking next week at the Universitätsklinikum in Essen. And their radiologists, who are supposed to be some of the best radiologists in Germany, they say that a computer can recognize a tumor on an MT or on a CT, MRT or CT, faster and better and more precisely than a human being can. It's picture analysis, and it's done very well by computers, especially in medicine where it saves lives. Now, the robots are getting better and better. They're looking cute. They have these big baby eyes, the sweet way of looking at you. They can examine your facial expression and adjust theirs. But don't be fooled by robots. Even when they get warm skin and even when they get perfume and they start smelling like us and getting really interesting, they are still machines. They have no warm blood in them. There's no sex in them. They have no mortality. They're cold code lines. And they shouldn't be misunderstood. Now, I want you to understand what the power of artificial intelligence is, and I have two examples. One is surveillance cameras. Everybody knows, that we're being watched by cameras everywhere, and most people think surveillance is a camera there, and it's me down here, and it's watching me. One person, one camera. Well, that's because we're stupid. That's the way we comprehend the surveillance, one camera, one person. We can't comprehend it when it goes beyond that.
This image was taken 17,500 feet above Quantico, Virginia, and covers 15 square miles.
This whole image is at a very, very fine resolution. So if we wanted to know what is going on in any spot along this image, say near this building at this intersection, everything that is a moving object is being automatically tracked. The color boxes represent that the computer has recognized the moving objects. You can see individuals crossing the street. You can see individuals walking in parking lots. There's actually enough resolution to be able to see the people waving their arms or walking around, what kind of clothes they wear.
Unlike the Predator camera that limits field of view, Argus melds together video from each of its 368 chips to create a 1.8 billion pixel video stream. This makes it possible to zoom in and still see tremendous detail.
And produces 1 million terabytes every day. That's a lot of data. And I'm telling you this because not that the sensors are modern and not that the photography is modern. Behind that is a brain or a cognitive intelligence. And that brain is in a position to analyze everybody down there at the same time, in real time. They see where everyone is going. We can understand it when we reduce it to a single person, but we cannot understand it when you're talking about 100,000 people in a city, plus the vehicles, which are all recognized. Due to such systems, they have also redone facial recognition. You probably think facial recognition is from the front. But they've redone to do it from the top because that's where the drones are. And they look at your ears, they look at the way you walk, they look at your head. That's modern facial recognition. So that's one idea. As a human being, we think of one camera and one person. This is a little of their things. That it's taking all the details, all the music up to, and they record it so they can tell where that person was 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, what stores he visited, what his whole behavioral patterns are. That's all part of the analysis of Argus. These are called tennis balls in military and intelligence circles. It's a new secretive sensoric thing. A cruise missile will fly into a valley in Afghanistan, and this is especially important because the troops have left many of these areas, and it will drop literally thousands of these sensor packages, or these tennis balls. They're all packed in foam rubber. They record with cameras, they record with microphones, they record with seismic measurements, they record with Geiger counters, they record with chemical sensors that can look for chemical things. That's not the amazing part of it, and it's not the amazing part that they have a little signal that goes over here to the transmitter goes up to the satellite. Old technology, nothing special. But the special part of it is, behind that system, there's a fusion software that can combine the audio and the visual and the seismic and the chemical, all of these signals, and make sense of them and analyze on the ground what kind of troop movements they are, what are the kinds of vehicles they're using, what are they transporting, is there radioactivity in that? It takes all of these different pieces of information and turns it through fusion software into an understandable picture, which goes way beyond our vision. Artificial intelligence only works if you have huge data masses. Artificial intelligence only works if you have big data. But big data only works if you have artificial intelligence to make sense of it, because human beings can no longer sort and sift and order the huge volumes of data that we have collected. And thus it is not surprising that the company that has the most information in the world, it's probably the most powerful country in the world, Google, is very interested in artificial intelligence and has been traveling around the world as a shopping queen, buying all the companies that are dealing with robotics. This is one of their robots. This is called Atlas. And they're buying artificial intelligence, all the artificial intelligence companies from around the world. Now this is, if you ask Google, it's a peaceful robot, right? He doesn't have a gun. He doesn't throw atomic bombs. You know, he just walks around and stands there. But you may have seen the superimposers DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. That is the research arm of the Pentagon. And then you see the video was made by Lockheed Martin, which is one of the most powerful and influential and richest weapons companies in the world. So why is the Pentagon investing this money? Why has Lockheed Martin taken over large aspects of the company? This guy's called Big Dog. He also belongs to Google, also DARPA financed. Peaceful dog, right? Unless he gets caught on a maneuver of the United States Marines as part of a military unit. So these are not flower children. These are robots that have a function, and robots that have a function and an intelligence, and perhaps an intelligence that goes beyond us, are dangerous things. Now that's a Predator drone. It was taken at a secretive United States Air Force base in New Mexico. Predator drones you've seen, right? You've seen them on TV, you've seen them in the newspapers. They're old. They're 20 years old, the technology. This is, I mean, it looks very scary when the Spiegel and the ARD write modern technology and the guys in the joystick and killing people and Taliban and in Afghanistan far away. But that's what a modern drone looks like. This is not a Predator, this is a Pegasus. It's an X-47B. It's owned by the Navy. It's a jet-powered machine, not like a propeller-driven Predator. It goes 2,000 miles into enemy territory. It carries 2,000 kilos worth of explosives, and is run by artificial intelligence. It starts alone, flies its mission alone, comes back alone, and here's the clue, it lands all by itself on an aircraft carrier. Talk to any pilot you've ever met. What's the most difficult landing area you can possibly imagine? They say it's an aircraft carrier. Short runway, things moving, very hard. This thinking drone can do it. But here are the two keys to Pegasus. Pegasus is invisible. Now, I'm not talking about stealth and being invisible to radar. I'm talking about invisible to the human eye. And you won't find this in any newspaper anywhere. It's invisible to the human eye because the bottom has an LED layer on it, and the top has cameras, which have been removed here in the picture, which film the sky, and they project on the bottom a live picture of the clouds up above the aircraft, and you can hardly see it. And they're responsible for a lot of these UFO sightings in Nevada near the testing areas. Jet engine propulsion, a reach of, oops, this is in German, of 2,000 miles, start and landing all by itself. Stealth is optical stealth. You can't see it. And the kill decision, which is required by United States law to be made by human beings. Human beings must be in the loop before someone is killed by a drone, but it's in the machine. And it doesn't need people. It can decide by itself whether or not it kills somebody. And the experts say it's going to make less mistakes and less collateral damage than the human decisions. The kill decision in robots in the air, in robots on the ground, in robots in the water or underwater, where there are also drones, is made by, or can be made by machines. And in my book, I quote many official United States government documents which say, our goal is to have the kill decision made by them. And the problem is, artificial intelligence, sometimes they make mistakes. This is Talon. He's an automatic cannon. I mean, they can, a lot of ammunition in that thing, and you can also put rockets on it. And it's in Iraq since 2007. At a demonstration with US generals and experts, the damn thing got out of control and started pointing at the audience. And there was a Marine there, thank goodness, running across the field who tackled it like a football player and threw it on his side and probably prevented a couple hundred people from being killed. Now, this wasn't reason enough to take a lucrative contract away from the company that built it, and it wasn't enough to take the Talon out of Iraq. It's just sort of off duty for a moment because, you know, there were some early stages of development, you know, that kind of problem. But don't underestimate artificial intelligence because it's getting better every day and it's going to scare us. And now I'm right at the right time where I say stop. Because I want to take a look now. This has all been here and now technology. Let's go to the future. Not far, just a little bit to the Internet of Things, to artificial intelligence as being spread out. It's not a central machine in a box where you can pull the plug. Artificial intelligence is networked like the Internet of Things. And part of it may be in a smart watch or a refrigerator or in a supercomputer. And the intelligence exists only by networking it together. If the supercomputer needs more computer power, it goes there and gets it out of the Internet. If the computer needs better programs, it goes there and gets those programs. And if it needs more information, more data, it goes there and gets more data. It sets up a spontaneous network for its needs, which collapses when it no longer needs it. It does this without us. And you have to imagine, like, there are these intelligence nodes all over the place. And they're like drops of mercury on a glass table. They will find their way to each other. They will find their way together. Now, we have to be very careful because survival is an issue for artificial intelligence. It needs to exist to be able to do the things it wants to do according to its program. So it lays like insect eggs, backups and computer programs all over the world, thousands and thousands of them, so that if we do destroy part of it, it's still alive. My job to you is the wake-up call to make you aware of the problem. Your job is to figure out how we're going to stop this before it kills us.
By 2030, the connections will start to be made between artificial intelligence and the human brain. We've been through a process of preparation, of getting people, first of all, stage one, addicted to technology that they hold, holdables, smartphones, tablets. That's basically achieved. You just have to walk through a city and you see the addiction. And they're targeting specifically the young. Why? Because the young of today and children of today are going to be the adults when they want to bring this AI connection in full blown. For that to happen, they have to get people addicted to technology to the point where they'll accept it and where it's the most natural thing in the world. And it's happening in front of our eyes. The first stage is to get people addicted to technology to the point where, at the most extreme, they'll get up in the dead of night and they'll queue, stand in line outside an Apple store to get the first of the new technology. And what they want eventually, and not too distant into the future, is people basically lining up to be connected to AI. In the same way that people in Sweden now are having parties to celebrate someone being microchipped, right? All this connects. So the next stage, because the idea is to get in the body, the next stage is to get on the body. So we went from just holdables, we went to wearables, we went to Bluetooth and Google Glass and Apple Watches and all these other gadgets that go on the body now. Even what they call electronic tattoos that are basically microchips on the skin. And the next stage is to go in the body, which is already starting in places like Sweden. And people like Ray Kurzweil, who is a Google executive, Google and Facebook are really at the cutting edge of this stuff. People think it's a social media operation only or a search engine only. No. This whole Google group now, which is given the name Alphabet, are absolutely at the cutting edge of this whole AI technology. So is Amazon. Amazon's got contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars with the CIA and the Pentagon for cloud services and stuff.
Yeah, they have massive data services.
Massive, yeah.
Consumers don't see.
So the idea is to take this on. And what Kurzweil is saying, and he claims an 80% success rate in his predictions of incoming technology and when it will come in. But if you know when it's going to come in, then you've got a great chance of predicting it. It's like if you know when a stock market's going to fall because the people you are connected to are going to make it fall, well, you're going to get out just before it falls and you're going to get in just before you know they're going to push it up. You don't have to be, Nostradamus if you know the script. This is the sales pitch, and this is why they're telling you. The sales pitch is when we connect to artificial intelligence, we'll be superhuman. That's what the sales pitch is. That's his sales pitch.
Right.
That's going
Siri,
to be the sales pitch.
Alexa, all these things.
Yeah. What you've got is the idea that connect to AI and you'll become superhuman intelligent. No, you'll become subhuman intelligent. You'll become a vehicle for artificial intelligence. And whoever controls artificial intelligence will control the perceptions of every mind that it's connected to. If you're going to make a physical connection with AI, you're not going to do that on a mass scale until you've made a psychological connection. And there is a process, a psychological process, which is known as preemptive programming. Preemptive programming is this. You're going to usher in a world that is so different, so dramatically different to what anyone's been used to, that you're going to have an obvious resistance purely by the chasm of difference between the world people are used to and the world you're taking them into. A resistance that says, hold on a minute, you want to do what? What? So you prepare them for it through preemptive programming. You put out a stream of movies out of elite-controlled Hollywood. You put out television programs, you put out books, you put out all these things that basically portray the world you want to take people into. This is why you've seen so many movies about control by robots, control by technology, of synthetic humans. You have the dystopian society being portrayed and portrayed and portrayed. And what that's doing, it's making the subconscious, to an extent the conscious mind, familiar with the world you want to usher in. So when you literally start to bring it in, there's not that chasm that there would have been before. There is almost a familiarity with it because you prepared people by portraying it over and over again in movies. Another part of this psychological connection with artificial intelligence, so we'll accept the outcome that I've talked about, is these Alexas and these Echoes and these so-called office assistants or personal assistants. You start to interact with them as if they're human. And now they're bringing in internet-connected toys for kids, even little kids, and Barbie dolls that they can actually have conversations with artificial intelligence. They're now bringing in these robots that are, these synthetic robots that are looking more and more like humans, a lot of them coming in from the East. And this is a whole psychological process of familiarizing us with artificial intelligence, to getting people to interact with it until it becomes the most natural thing in the world. By 2030, the connections will start to be made between artificial intelligence and the human brain. And the human brain will be connected to what he calls the cloud. Another name for this is the smart grid, basically to artificial intelligence. As time passes, artificial intelligence will be more and more of human thinking and human perception until basically it's the totality of human thinking and human perception, at which point we won't be human anymore in terms of the consciousness processes we are using today. We will be artificial intelligence. And this is the assimilation I'm talking about. If you are connecting the human mind to a grid, a global technological grid, that grid can be centrally controlled. It will take at the center point very, very few people to run it, and even fewer to decide how it's run. I say this to kids and anybody else: how long could you live without your smartphone? What is an alcoholic? What, an alcoholic is someone addicted to alcohol? Yeah. Why is he addicted to alcohol? Because he can't stop drinking it. But you can't put your phone down. And if you do, within a few minutes you pick it up again because you're addicted to it. So are you controlling that bit of technology in your hand, or is that controlling you? That's controlling you. Do you want your life controlled by a bit of technology? Do you want the rest of your life controlled by it? Or are you now going to go, I'm putting this down? If technology is going to be the servant rather than the governor, it has to serve the interests of humanity, and humanity does not have to serve it. We're in a situation now where humanity is serving technology. And it will be serving AI. Increasingly, it is serving AI in its algorithmic expression.
return of Jesus to the earth. Note the word shall. He shall come. Jesus Christ is going to return. It's not an if, it's not a maybe. Jesus Christ is coming back. Atheists may not believe it. Other religions might not like it, but he's coming back. And you know, the devil may not want it. He may try and prevent it, but he can do nothing to stop it. I want you to notice that Jesus shall come, and he will come physically, he will come bodily, he will come in person. This is not a mythical, misty, hazy return of Jesus. This is not some poetic description or something spiritualized. He is literally coming back. But also notice, they said, this same Jesus shall come. The same Jesus, not a different Jesus. Not a different Jesus. He's not going to be born, reincarnated all over again. He's not going to come with a different face. The same Jesus that ascended before the apostles on the Mount of Olives is going to return. And notice the third thing they said, in the same manner as you have seen him go into heaven. When Jesus returns, he is coming on the clouds of heaven, even as he ascended into the clouds on that day in Acts chapter 1. No more swaddling cloths, no more manger, no more star in the sky. The Son of God himself will appear in the sky. It will be the greatest entrance in the history of the world. The Bible says that every eye will see him. There will be no need for angels to whisper it to shepherds and for shepherds to go and tell it all around, because every eye will behold him come. He is coming back for his church, for his bride, for you and me. Oh, we will see our King on that day. We'll behold the Son of God. Our Savior will be visible to us. The one who bled for us on Calvary will be standing right in front of our eyes. We will see our resurrected Christ just as the apostles saw him and witnessed him in his resurrection. And just like Thomas, we will fall down and worship and say, my Lord and my God. But how surprising it will be for some of us when we stand before him and realize that his love really was as wide as he always said it was, greater than you ever knew. You'll realize in that moment how special you are to him as his power radiates through your being and you are transformed into his image. When death is swallowed up, when mortality puts on immortality in that moment, when he changes our vile body, Philippians 3:21 says, he changes our vile body. What did you say about my body? Not me, the scripture. Our vile body. Why vile? Because it bruises, it bleeds, it breaks down, it withers, it ages, it's corruptible. But in that moment we will put on a new body, filled with the glory of God itself, a body that cannot break down, a body that is impervious to sickness, where even death itself dies if it comes near that body. When Jesus comes, in that moment you will be aware of how great his desire was for you, how it always was. You will see in that moment how faithful your Lord is, how devoted to you he has always been. The irony is, when you see him, you will realize that you always had him. There was never a moment that you were alone. He never did leave you. He never once forsook you. He never once got distracted, but was always focused on you. You'll know how wise he was, how he always had a solution to every problem you ever faced. In every moment of confusion, there was an answer provided by your Father in heaven. You'll recognize how much of a helper the Holy Spirit truly was, how mighty, how able, and also how willing he was to make his strength your own. You'll see in that moment that the shoulders of the Lord were broad enough, his arms were strong enough to carry you and lift those burdens that you have carried yourself day after tiresome day, year after agonizing year. You'll see in that moment what a friend he was. You'll shudder on that day when you notice what omnipotent power was always made available to you at every moment of your Christian life. And it will become crystal clear in that moment precisely what Jesus said when he said, all power in heaven and in earth belongs to me. You'll see also that sin really never had any more dominion over you.
It never had any more power to control you. You'll realize in that moment that when the Son made you free, you were free indeed. You'll see that in every temptation you ever faced in your life, He was right there. He was right there, providing a way of escape. When Jesus returns and calls us to be with Him, you will see just how good He is. Goodness beyond your wildest dreams, goodness beyond my ability to convey to you in words. You'll see in that moment that no evil in your life ever came from Him. You'll realize that there was grace, there was help, there was strength in every trial that you ever faced. You'll realize that those afflictions you suffered really were light compared to the eternal weight of glory that you are entering in that moment. But in that moment also, no pretending. There'll be no pretending. We will stand before Him, and His first business will be to judge us. 2 Corinthians 5:10 says, we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. What will the verdict be for you and me on that day when we stand before the judge? Do you pray? Because maybe on that day you'll wish that you had prayed more. In that day when Jesus comes, you'll see how beneficial prayer was, just how far-reaching its effects were. What about love on that day? Will you wish that you had loved more, that you had loved harder? We're instructed by the Lord to love one another, to love the unlovely, to love without condition, without strings attached. Are you going to wish that you had loved more on that day? When you're exposed to the presence of Jesus Christ, who is love, you'll realize that person that you had strife with, He loves them too. And you'll see all of that strife and all of that bickering in a whole new light as you realize that Jesus loved them too. Will you wish that you sacrificed more on that day? Will you wish that you had served more? The work here on earth will be done, but will you have done your part? Will you be able to say that you did what the Lord called you to do? You know, you might say, well, I've been a Christian all these years and Jesus hasn't come yet. He hasn't come today, and maybe I'll finish this message and we'll all go home and wake up tomorrow and another day will have passed without the Lord returning. Well, guess what? That's one more day that is going to pass before Him in the judgment seat. That's one more day that will pass under His eyes that burn like a flame of fire. One more day of your actions, one more day of your thoughts going in whatever direction you determine. And I'm not saying this to condemn you for what you haven't done. I'm trying to urge you and encourage you that you still have an opportunity now to make a change before the Lord comes. I'm talking about what you can still do for Him while time remains. There will be an end, and Jesus will come. The tears will be wiped from our eyes. No more aches, no more pains, no more toil and no more sweat, no more sorrow, no more pain, ever, for those former things will have passed away. So let me urge you, draw near to Him now, serve Him now, pray now, love Him now, and love others in obedience to Him now. Quit your worries, quit your anxiety, because in that day you'll see how fruitless all that was. Trust Him now, because then you'll see that you always could. Seek His face now, and you will be ever so glad when you see His face then.